you very much. Welcome to the Target Individual Program, the Target Individual Experience. Um, so, since I uploaded my previous video, um, I literally passed out after playing some Roadblocks game with my daughter. You know, being with her on the phone and talking to her, playing games with her. She enjoys it, and I really love those interaction with her. But I literally passed out. Woke up as soon as I woke up to the sounds of fireworks going off. Okay. Um, then police sirens since I've been online. Just gathering some information uh, about my next video. Now, I had a different video in mind when I started to gather information, but that changed. My sister came into my bedroom and, started asking me, what are the kids doing for the summer? Now, she knows because I've told her, but again, this is their way of trying to send me subliminal message, either test my memory, or send some sort of threat, right? So she kept saying, so I told her, so she kept mentioning my son name, Ethan. And, she kept mentioning it and, but I just ignore it, I had just woken up and she had been she had came into my bedroom before. I was sleeping and she came back again when I got up, and I guess the fireworks going off outside was a signal to her. Okay, now the fire trucks are outside. Okay, simply because again, monitor my online activities so they know that I'm in full mode in terms of exposing them for who they are and what it is that they're doing, and they don't like that, particularly since I'm going to be talking about their personality traits. Okay, and also how they have created cults, right? And these cults are uh, basically religious sect. Okay, and they push these sort of behavior in terms of gang stalking, mobbing through the churches. Okay, because again, these individuals have heavily infiltrated every aspect of society within the U.S. government, and now we know that there are people within the U.S. government who are religious believers, the vast majority. Okay, and those that are in the minority are not religious believers, or they may be of a different religion from Christianity. Okay, and despite what these American Christian fundamentalists, uh, extremists views and think that the United States was a Christian nation, no, it wasn't. So they are willing to even ignore the history of the United States to create their own version of that history. Okay, this is why the clause in the Constitution, the one that talks about separation between church and state, this is why they're so against that. And this is why they recently, within the past few years, talk about how separation of church and state is unconstitutional, because basically they want to create a religious country. Okay, and what happened when they create a religion, basically a white Christian fundamental extremist religious government, and basically white supremacists. And what that will do here in the United States is create all sorts of chaos. Racism will explode like you've never seen it. Lynching, will be something that will be reinstituted. Also, if you are of a different religion, you will be persecuted. as much as you join these Christian fundamentalists in attacking targeted individuals, they have been attacking you also, particularly within the Muslim community, okay, and within those of us who are non-believers. Okay, so let me start this video properly. This that I'm going to play right now, as you see on screen, is the speech from Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and where he talks about the infiltration of SHIELD by Hydra and agents of Hydra. Okay, and again, as a disclaimer, this video that's being played is of fair use. It is for reaction, documentation, and I do not own a copyright to this video.
Finally, we're here, and the world should be grateful.
Attention all SHIELD agents. This is Steve Rogers. You've heard a lot about me over the last few days. Some of you were even ordered to hunt me down.
But I think it's time you know the truth. SHIELD is not what we thought it was. It's been taken over by Hydra.
Alexander Pierce is their leader. The Strike and Insight crew are Hydra as well. I don't know how many more.
But I know they're in the building.
They could be standing right next to you. They almost have what they want. Absolute control.
They shot Nick Fury.
And it won't end there.
If you launch those helicarriers today,
Hydra will be able to kill anyone that stands in their way.
unless we stop them. And I know I'm asking a lot. But the price of freedom is high. It always has been. And it's a price I'm willing to pay. And if I'm the only one, then so be it. But I'm willing to bet I'm not. Did you write that down first?
Okay, so Captain America, okay, he's talking on the helicraft, okay, or the fortress, and he's talking about how agents of Hydra have infiltrated SHIELD. Okay. And as a targeted individual, you know, we have a unique perspective in terms of how we're targeted and how we understand how these fundamentalists have infiltrated every aspect of society, every institution, every business, every academic university, every school, public school system. And it doesn't matter whether they're liberal or conservative, okay? Both have their own agenda and are willing to do whatever it takes to see that agenda through. And it doesn't matter if it hurts millions of people in the process of getting what they want. These are the leaders, those who are behind the scenes and those who are in front of the scenes that we look at, we listen to. They get on television, whether they're liberal or conservative, or sometimes independent, and they will say sweet things to have us believe what it is that they say. And what the unsuspecting general public do not understand is that these people have been trained in the art of persuasion. They have been trained in the art of psychological manipulation and propaganda. The next time you watch politicians, look at their speech pattern, listen to their speech pattern, look at their movement, if they're displaying any sort of hand signals, whether they're touching their nose, sticking their finger in their ears, doing certain signals with their fingers. Okay, you got to pay special attention to these things. When they do these things, they understand that they are going to be affecting people's perception. Okay? And when they do these things, is to show other groups of people that they are with them. See, hand signals is something that groups use, people use. Okay, so we know the white supremacists on the police force use a certain type of hand signal to let others know that they are white supremacists. Gangs, whether they're in the police force or general public, uses hand signals as well as colors. And where do you think these things come from? Now, I talk about the CIA infiltration of police department across America during the 80s, during the crack cocaine epidemic that was created by the CIA. In the 70s, after the destruction of the Black Panther Party, a movement, gangs began to form. How did you think those gangs form? How do you think these gangs started using hand signals and colors as a means to communicate or to separate themselves from other groups of people? Do you think they just come up with these things all by themselves on their own? Well, I'm here to tell you the answer is no. Because we've all been manipulated. We've all been exploited. Okay, some of us, though, we all been experimented on, make no mistake, but some of us have been experimented on in some of the worst ways. This is why we call ourselves targeted individuals. Now, I wanted to do a different video, like I said, but the incident with my sister, particularly because she's very religious, okay, and I'm not, okay, we living in the same apartment, you know, so it's not uncomfortable for me, but I'm sure it might be for her and, you know, everybody else that comes here, okay, because the one thing I don't shy away from is confronting people on their ignorance. Okay? And if people confront me on my ignorance, I learn. I go look it up. I go research it. And if they're wrong, they'll know. I'll let them know. And if I'm wrong, then, you know, I'm wrong. I let them know that I'm wrong. Okay? The one thing as a targeted individual that they don't want us to be is a different person from who they say we are. The false narrative, the false profiling, they have to do things in which you follow their agenda. And their agenda doesn't align with you being a positive person. And when I say positive, I don't mean that, you know, oh, I'll say whatever to make you feel good. No, I mean positive in the sense is that you understand the truth, and you teach people the truth, as uncomfortable as the truth may be, in order to change people false reality, to give them a sense of the truth and to open their eyes to the truth. That's positive. The lies, the feel good lies, that's not positive, but they trot that as positive. Okay? Because it keeps you distracted and defeated. Okay? So I want you to understand how much of an extent these people will go through, okay, to push their agenda by the use of lies, deceptions, criminal actions to justify their belief system. Okay? This is why I played this video. So, you know, what they say, life imitates art, and sometimes it's the other way around. Okay? So let's start off with Joel's army. Okay? Again, shout out to Alda Misterioso. He is the first one that mentioned this to me many, many years ago. And it's funny that I'm remembering this now. Okay? And again, there's certain things that they do that triggers me. And so, for the most part, I tend to not be manipulated or influenced when they trigger me. Okay? Unless I can use that in a positive way to expose what's going on. Okay? So this is from 2008. Okay, this is from Daily Kiosk. Joel's Army, an omnicide in the name of God. Now, what did the CIA said when they developed the voice of skull weapon? They called it what? The voice of God. And if you think these religious fanatics are not involved in non-consensual human experimentation for the control of the human mind, you're out of your mind. Because the one thing in their crazy ass mind, in their delusional ass mind, that they want to do is to have us believe in their delusion in white supremacy Christianity. Okay? So, yesterday we revealed that John Hagee Church is confirmedly within the Joel's Army movement, a group of the most extreme of the extreme of neo-Pentecostal dominionists who believe they are part of a third Pentecost designed to raise a group of divine Übermenschen to name and claim the world for their ideology. See, many people have no idea what is going on behind the scenes. Okay? The pieces that are being moved that affect our lives on a daily basis, and particularly for the black community and black people and European people, a large part of that is to our destruction. And if you look at black culture, or what I call European culture, because it transformed from black culture to European culture, you start to see the negative behavior of black people on a level which has never been seen. It is astounding. And particularly young black women who have been conditioned to the point where I don't think that they can be deprogrammed. It will have to take a mass program and awareness of black sociologists, psychologists, therapists, to have the courage to offer their services to black men and women in order to identify and reverse the negative brainwashing that has been happening in the minds of European and black men and women. Okay? So one of the parts of their idea of theology that is rarely discussed, save by a few of us researchers, is that they are one of the very few groups on the planet to literally have a theological mandate for not only genocide, but near omnicide, both pre and post tribulation, combined with the known use of coercive tactics. Now, I've been talking about on a lot of my videos, coercive persuasion. Understand that cults religion uses coercive persuasion tactics and methods. They use thought reform tactics and methods. It is part of their core belief system and standard in which to convert and to indoctrinate their followers. Okay, so combined with the known use of coercive tactics and the decidedly unique interpretation of biblical verses that claim they're part of an end-time army of God's warrior. Now, who do you hear say this a lot? These are white supremacists within the military, in the police forces, where in towns all across America, you will have sheriffs who are also pastors in the churches. And their view of the people who they police is one of disdain. They view them as being evil. They don't see the humanity in these individuals, because in the position that they're in, just moved away from the mic so the volume went down a little bit. In the position that they're in, and because of their personality, which I'm going to get into, which is the dark triad personality types, all right, narcissism, psychopathy, this is who they are. Okay, so it's not exaggeration to state this as a potential threat to humanity. Things where Joe Army Hagee doesn't want you to know. One thing Hagee may not want folks to know about is the fact that Joel's army is a kissing cousin to the horribly racist Assembly's granddaughter, Christian identity. Namely, one big thing they both promote, through though in different contexts, is the concept of penis priests. Now, I've never heard that term, so I decided to look it up. Penis priest. Okay, this is from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Penis priesthood is not an organization, actual organization, has no leaders, meetings, and any other institutional apparatus. The priesthood is a concept. A penis priest is an individual who commits a penis action, a reference to an Old Testament story in which an interfaith couple is slain by a Hebrew man named Phineas, who is then rewarded by God. Typically, white supremacists describe penis action as the slaying of interracial couples, but they have included attacks on Jews, non-whites, multiculturalists, and others seen as enemy. The idea of the Pious priesthood, sometimes referred simply as Pious priests, originated in Vigilantes of Christendom. The story of the Pious priesthood, a 1990 book by white supremacist Richard Kelly Hoskin. Hoskin described Pious priests as individuals who, through the ages, have felt called upon by God to murder race mixers and their fellow travelers. He based his idea on the story in Number 25:6, in which Pious used a single spear thrust to kill both a Hebrew man and his lover, a Midianite woman. God is then said to reward Pious, granting him and his descendants a permanent priesthood, because the Midianites worshiped Baal and were sowing their belief among the Hebrew. White supremacists read the story as saying that God has decreed the death penalty for so-called race mixers. Okay, just wanted to get some clarification on that. Okay, so again, let's us reason this note. Rick Joyner teaches, what is about to come upon the earth is not just a revival or another awakening. It is a variable revolution. The vision was given in order to begin to awaken those who have destined to radically change the course and even the very definition of Christianity. The dismantling of organization and disbanding of some works will be a positive and exhilarating experience for the Lord's faithful servant. The Lord will rise up a great company of prophets, teachers, pastors, and apostles that will be of the spirit of Pious. His ministry of Pious will save congregation and at times even whole nation. Nation will tremble at the mention of their name, the harvest. Rick Joyner. So does Paul Creek. Since Joel's army is supposed to be men and women taking possession of this earth for their king, the second class of warriors become necessary. These so-called the Pious priesthood, Rick Joyner made mention to those with the spirit of Pious in his book, The Harvest, the dismantling of organization. Again, just read that. The book written by Richard Kelly Hopkins entitled Vigilantes of Christendom described these warriors. He says of them, as the kamikaze is to the Japanese, as the Shiite is to Islam, as the Zionist is to the Jews, so the Pious priest is to Christendom. It is very clear that they are preparing to slaughter those who resist their authority. Jesus warned that they shall put you out of the synagogues. Ye, in the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he does God's service. St. John 16:2. That sounds exactly like the great inquisitors of the Dark Ages. It's interesting and more than a bit disturbing to discuss the one usage of the term outside of Joel's army circles. The one other group that talks about Pious priests, aside from Joel's army, Neo-Pentecostal Dominionists, happens to be Christian identity groups of note. Christian identity itself can be considered to be a particular racist split from an early Joel's army movement called Manifest Sons of Gods. The Anti-Defamation League has more info on the racist version. A police search of Pharaoh's Call yesterday reveals a copy of War Cycles, Peace Cycles, a book written by Richard Kelly Hoskins, an adherent to the racist and anti-Semitic identity movement. Hoskins' 1990 book, Vigilantes of Christendom, the story of the Pious priesthood, is a lengthy manifesto that preserves that perverts passages of the Bible to justify anti-Semitic and racist acts of violence. The penis priesthood is a violent credo of vengeance that has gained some popularity among white supremacists and other extremists in recent years. Unlike other extremist groups, the penis priesthood is not a membership organization in the traditional sense. There are no meetings, rallies, or newsletters. Rather, extremists become member when they commit penis act, any violent activity against non-white. In this way, achieving penis priesthood status has become the goal of extremists committed to perpetrating violent crimes. In 1990, Hoskin published his bizarre magnum opus, Vigilantes of Christendom, the story of the penis priest, where he claimed that the penis priesthood are Christian guerrillas who avenge Judeo-Christian traitors while assuming a posture of impartiality. He speaks with clear sympathy of the order of Adolf Hitler and of murderers of homosexuals and interracial couple. Penis acts are becoming much more common in regards of domestic terrorism tied to Christian identity groups. They also become quite common among domestic terrorist acts linked to neopenthe dominionist and Christian reconstructionist group like clinic bombings, assassination, and so on. Now let me just pause right here. And so, recently, there's all these shootings, particularly white supremacists killing people in mass. Then over the weekend, you had a shooting in Chicago, which a young white male started opening fire and killing 6 people. This town or this part of Chicago is predominantly white. And so what they have done here is to target their own. These are the sacrificial lambs, okay, in order to change the narrative to now say, well, look, these people are also attacking these, other white people, right? But that is true, but the vast majority of these acts are committed against people of color, particularly black people. So, if going forward you start to see that rarely mentioned, okay, but also know that white supremacy also negatively impact and affect white people. Okay? So it's not just, though they may be particularly focused on black people and people of color, but it also affects white people. Okay? Because they will sacrifice other white people for their agenda. Okay? Paul Hill, the anti-abortionist activist, was convicted of murdering Dr. John Bayard Britton and his escort outside a Pensacola, Florida abortion clinic in 1994. Hill had written an essay advocating the commission of penis action a year before. Now, we've seen over the couple of years how the religious right have infiltrated many forms of government, many institutions, how they have stacked the federal courts with federal judges who are of the extreme belief in white supremacy Christianity. Make no mistake about that. And the left, they know what's going on. Okay? But they feel secure in their geographic region. Okay? Because though the Supreme Court may have overturned Roe versus Wade, it gives the power back to the states to pass laws to protect or to create laws in which abortion is legal or not. And in states that are highly religious and run by religious fanatics, they don't want abortion to be illegal. They want it to be illegal. So now they can do just that. Okay? Because you see, as much as they preach about government, okay, and how small government is better, they like big government. Matter of fact, they prefer big government because big government will give them power and authority over the entire nation. Okay? And they understand that big government, once laws are passed, that it affects them also. So when they want to talk about states' rights, understand that the U.S. government, the Senate and the Congress, okay, supersedes their state law with laws that are passed and signed by the President of the United States. So for those who are unfamiliar with the judicial system of the United States, and many Americans are, most Americans I would say are, this is why they have kept people ignorant. And again, this is a fact. You can go look it up. What's the percentage of Americans that are I don't want to say illiterate, but let's just say that practically half of Americans, people in America, have a 6th grade or below reading level. Okay? That's just to give you an idea. Okay. So, Paul Hill was a domestic terrorist and assassin who was ultimately executed in part because of his murder, part of a campaign of domestic terrorism conducted by a group calling itself the Army of God. Hidden messages for divinely sanctioned slaughter. It's also worth noting the biblical context of this and why it's so worrying. Penis, which is the more proper translation, is described in Numbers 25 as being the leader of a particular bloody purge in Jewish history. In Numbers 25, 1-3, the introduction of the worship of Baal Peor, a local mountain deity, via Moabite and Midianite influence, including notably intermarriage with the Moabite and Midianite people, is noted. And in Numbers 25, 6-8, the level of Penin's zeal is revealed when Moses commands the mass slaughter of anyone who had tuck with veneration of Baal Peor. And behold, one of the people of Israel came and brought a Midianite woman to his family, in the sight of Moses and in the sight of the whole congregation of the people of Israel, while they were weeping at the floor of the tent of meeting. When Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose and left the congregation, and took a spear in his hand, and went after the man of Israel into the inner room, and pierced both of them, the man of Israel and the woman, though her body. Thus the plague was stayed from the people of Israel. Yes, you read that right. He literally shish kebab not only the Midianite lady, but her Israeli fiance, whilst the two of them were boinking their brains out in the temple. Penis is not only hailed for this, but in Numbers 25, 11-13, is made head of the hereditary priesthood. The families of the two persons involved in the affair become cipher. Then it goes on to say the blood substance out here, such and such. Okay. But I just want to give you and put into the concept that the belief that some of these people have, these religious fanatics, and for people who are targeted individuals and are religious, you need to be careful because they will manipulate you into believing things like this. Even if you are non-religious, but they will manipulate you. For example, right? I'm a strong believer in the black family, in black people. You know, they're pro-black, right? But I'm not anti-white. I'm not anti-anybody. But I am anti those who are anti towards me. So it doesn't matter. You could be a black person. If you're anti towards me, I'm anti towards you. A white person, if you're anti towards me, I'm anti towards you. Asian person, if you're anti towards me, I'm anti towards you. Or any other group. So if you come to me, you're going to come to me in friendship and with understanding. It doesn't have to be love. Okay? And respect, you'll get the same thing back. But if you come to me in violence, whether it be psychological or otherwise, with disrespect, hatred, then that's what you're going to get back. Okay? I make no distinction. I'm not going to blur the line. I'm not going to hope that that me being friendly towards you is going to change your mind. Okay? I'll leave that for the Negropeans because I see that it's not working out very well for them. Okay? So I'll leave that to them and their ridiculous, ignorant mindset. Okay? So, these people will try to portray you as being a certain way because it is their agenda to portray you in such a way. They will work to destroy your family, destroy your relationships, destroy your business, and expect you to be like Job of the Bible. Okay? But Job is a fictional character. And if you read it and you think it really happened, then there's not too much I can say to you. Because if you know the story of Job, right, what God and Satan made a bet and put Job through, and in the end it tells you that God replenished Job, right, and even reward him more so than he had prior to what was done to him. The murder of his wife, his children, the destruction of his crops, right? The destruction of his house. They try to use biblical themes and allegory to destroy your life, to oppress you, and create in your mind this false belief system of being rewarded. But it is a false belief system. And for any person like me, because I'm pro-black, like I said, they will send white people. If you're married, they'll send white women, men, to destroy your marriage or relationship. Okay, to manipulate your children if they're adults into, again, I have nothing against interracial marriage. What I am against is when we as black people or Negropeans marry particularly white people, okay, and not understanding that when they start to fetishize us in the bedroom, that we don't see anything. And like I said, as a black person, when you get involved with other groups of people, men or women, if they're not sympathetic to the history of black people and what we go through today, what we had been through, okay, and if they are not an ally in trying to tear down white supremacy and its white supremacist ideology within society, okay, you don't need to be dating them. You don't need to be speaking to them. Unless they show you that they have your best interests at heart, like they have their best interests at heart, and they say that they love you, but then they'll take you into the bedroom and call you the end name while they're screwing you. You know, want to role play slave master. You know, want to, say to you, give me that N dick, give me that N, vagina. Who can try to put in the most proper saying, or less, not proper, but less vulgar saying, right? Then, it's just like, with Asian men and women, and particularly Asian women. White men tend to marry Asian women more than any other group because of why? Because of their stereotypical belief that Asian women are docile. Okay? So a big part of them wanting to be with us is because of the fetishization of our bodies, and also the racial component of what we've been through as a people throughout history. So like I said, I have nothing wrong with interracial marriages. But just make sure that you, with a person who is fighting or willing to fight to tear down white supremacy. Because if that person does not, they don't have your best interest at heart. Okay? So, let me put that to rest. So again, when they want to say I'm this and that, no, I'm not. All right? And I speak because I'm a black person, a black man in particular, living in America, which is a very racist country. Okay? The government is racist. Institutions are racist. And like I said, they've already told me or revealed to me that, yeah, they're going to put our children and their children back into slavery. But I know, I'm just crazy. Tell you what, there's a lot of crazy people who've been right about many things. Okay? Okay, so let's see. Let's talk about this. The Analysis News. Full interview. Powerful Christian nationalists in military see Trump as vehicle for authoritarian religious state. Okay? Because this is where this is headed. Okay? They have already have the majority in the judicial branch of the U.S. government, the United States Supreme Court. Okay? They are willing to call themselves Democrats, liberal, in order to gain power, in order to infiltrate the enemy so they can in turn exert their will and their power as a group to overturn the U.S. Constitution. So just wait until they start overturning interracial marriages. Okay, so then those spreading rumors about me can no longer say that I'm bigoted, because I cannot be racist. You know, as a black person, you cannot be racist. I got to make that distinction and let people know. Black people cannot be racist. Racist is an institutionalized system, and those that benefit from that institutionalized system are racist, just like the system is racist, because they benefit from that system at the expense or the negative impact of marginalized group or other group of people. Okay? So black people cannot be racist. If you want to call me bigoted, you can call me bigoted. Okay? But I'm not a bigot either. But you can't call me racist. Matter of fact, you can't call no person, no black person in America, racist. All right? Let's get that straight. If you guys don't know, go and look it up. All right? So Christian fundamentalist nationalists in the senior ranks in the military sees Trump. And again, let me just go back to when this was written. This was written July 29, 2021. Okay? So Christian fundamentalist nationalists in the senior ranks of the military sees Trump as an instrument of God's plan to create an authoritarian Christian state. I'm going to read that again. Christian fundamentalist nationalists in the senior ranks of the military, okay, see Trump as an instrument of God's plan to create an authoritarian Christian state. The military allows active proselytizing and recruitment of soldiers, contrary to the constitutional separation of church and state. Many of these officers and soldiers were involved in the event leading up to and on January 6th, which has been described as an attempted coup. Mikey Weinstein of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation joins Paul J. on the Analysis News. And this is an interview. Okay, so it says, "Hi, I'm Paul J. Welcome to Analysis News. In a few seconds, I'll be joined by Mikey Weinstein, who's going to talk about the role of religious extremists in the U.S. military and leading up to the event of the storming of Capitol Hill on January 6th. Okay? So let me just talk about this, right? So before we get into the substance of what this movement is, January 6th is one of the more viable signs of, but it clearly goes beyond that. Tell us more about MRFF, what it does, why it came into being, and then we'll get into what you think about Joe Wilson Warner. Okay? So, and again, I'm just going to skip past certain things, right? When he came out with this amazing, I think this was about Mel Gibson, okay, The Passion of Christ, and he said, The Passion of Christ in January 4, 2004, or as we call it here at MRFF. Okay, what is MRFF? Okay, Military Religious Freedom Foundation. The Jesus Chainsaw Massacre, or Freddy versus Jesus. I had children at the Air Force Academy at the time, which is my alma mater as well. I was stunned to find out about the incredible pressure being put on cadets, faculty, and staff by both the cadets leadership and officers leadership where to go see the movie. You're dealing with cognitive dissonance. I love the academy. It was a transcendent experience for me. It wasn't easy, but I thought something was wrong here. I look at the movie was unbelievable anti-Semitic, and Gibson, whatever you think of him, I don't think a lot about him personally, but his movies are very, very well violent, and they have a lot of passion in them. Apocalypto, Braveheart, I can go on and go on. I went to see this movie, and halfway thought I stood up, I was going to say, stop beating this poor guy, meaning Jesus. I'll convert. It was like a snuff film. That was the first sign for me. When I reach out to my own children, I realize they have been told through their cadet careers. I had one that was a freshman or a fourth classman, and another who was a senior first classman engaged to another senior. He married his classmate, Amanda, and such and such. Okay, let me just skip past some things. I want to get to the meat and the bones, right? So it goes. They were being accused by the cadet chain of command, in some cases, chain officers of command, of totally complicity in the execution of Jesus Christ. They had been called all the names you might imagine for Jew, the K word, etc., etc. And I look at this huge push, and we have written quite a bit about this. It's been in movies, the push to get cadets to go see the movie, and I realized something was wrong here, that it wasn't a Houston, we have a problem issue or challenge. This was a national security threat. It was like pulling on a thread of a sweater. Long story short, that's when this fight began. We reached out to some of the usual civil rights organizations, the ACLU, America's United for Separation Church and State, the ADL. They're all good organizations, but they didn't understand the particular adversarial, communal, ritualistic, and tribal nature of the military. 22 months later, on December 15, 2005, we're fighting all the way through. My wife and I decided we need to fill not just a niche, but an open void of chasm, and create something that would fight to preserve the separation of church and state, temporal and spiritual, in technologically, the most lethal organization of our species, Homo sapiens, has never created, which is the U.S. military, where all the nuclear weapons are, the drones, the conventional weapons, the laser-guided weapons. What we saw was out of control, fundamentalist Christian nationalism, not just with the chaplains, as my dear late friend and brother Joe Wilson said, as he knew this very well, but certainly also in the command structure. And I used the example for our readers that are old enough, or if not old enough, knowledgeable enough to realize that the most famous speech ever given by President Eisenhower was his farewell speech, where he warned Paul, the world, and America about what you remember. Okay, so I'm going to just end this right here. Okay? And let's not forget about JFK's speech on the secret societies in America, the military industrial complex, as well as, as he said here, Eisenhower talks about military industrial complex, okay, that operate covertly, okay, that create wars for its own personal agenda and financial gains, right? For its creation and development of technology to control human beings, be it through psychological means, technological means, or chemical means. All right, so we can't forget this. Now, this is just, it's the military. So I want you to understand how these groups of people, and those, if you see the video that I did earlier, okay, they're all connected. So they're all connected. The creation of certain technologies to reinforce people believe in their religious belief system, or particularly in a God who is now going to tell them what to do, despite what the Bible says, because the Bible will tell you that God don't speak to people anymore. The last person he spoke to was through himself, which in the form of Jesus, right? But again, it comes down to power, white supremacists. They want to control the world, okay, for their genetic survival. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson speaks about that. Dr. Amos Wilson speaks about that. Okay, and many others. All right, now let's talk about how, actually, before I get into that, let me go to this article. Truth Out. Former FBI agent trial exposes racist ideology infiltrating law enforcement. Now, I get, it always bothers me when I read these types of articles that people are so shocked in terms of the infiltration of white supremacists within law enforcement, particularly the so-called educated people, right? Because we know that the police never started as a law enforcement agency. The police in America started as slave catchers, those who were given a badge and were called sheriffs, were to bring back runaway slaves, dead or alive. Well, preferably alive. That's the initial creation of so-called lawmen, right? Also, was to break up during the Industrial Revolution, to break up people who were trying to unionize, people who were trying to have better working conditions, better working hours, okay? Safety, better safe working environment, okay? So you got to understand the history. They've always been in law enforcement, white supremacists. They've always been in law enforcement. They've always been in the military. They've always been in the security agencies. They've always been in the Department of Justice, in the FBI. They've always been in the U.S. Senate, Congress, Supreme Court. There's always been in state, federal court, state Supreme Court, state municipalities. They've always been your managers, your co-workers. They've always been your doctor, your nurses, your technicians. So why do we continue to read articles like this that, exposing infiltration of white supremacists within law enforcement and any other, institution? But you see, when they have the public so dumbed down and ignorant to the facts, when you read stuff like this, you're shocked, even though you know the truth deep down. This is where the cognitive dissonance comes into play. Okay? So, John Godolo has built a lucrative business peddling racist conspiracy theories about Muslims and black people. The Dallas, Texas criminal trial of Amber Geiger, and off-duty police officers who entered the wrong apartment believing to be her own and killed Bohem Jean, has garnered national attention in a case of a white police officer using lethal force against an unarmed black man in his own apartment. Now, when I first heard about this, I said to myself, how could she think that that was her apartment? When you walk in, obviously the decorations would be different. Okay? So how is it that she walked in there? And see, when I hear stories like this, and I think a lot deeper, and understanding that, like I said, they will throw their own under the bus. They will create a sacrificial lamb. Okay, like they said in the article that I read, just like the kamikaze was to the Japanese, right? Just as the whatever. But you guys know what I'm saying. You can go back and watch that part. Okay? But this is what they will do. You have to understand with these white supremacists, these religious fundamentalists, that they have been conditioned a certain way. So they'll sacrifice themselves, old or young, for their purpose because they are being martyrized. Okay? So, however, just last week, another trial was taking place against former FBI agent John Guandolo, less than a mile away in Dallas, revealing the toxic systemic indoctrination of racism within law enforcement communities that receive almost no attention. Now, we tend to just look at the police departments across America as being racist, but we never look at the FBI. Because, as they say, right, the subordinates reflect the attitude and behavior of the managers or the leaders, or the followers, reflect the leadership qualities of their leader. So when you look at police departments across America, you got to look at the FBI, the Department of Justice. They are the head law enforcement agencies, and underneath them, so the Justice Department is on top, the FBI is second, and you have your state, local law enforcement agencies right at the bottom. It's not to say that everyone in the FBI is a white supremacist and racist. Everyone in the Department of Justice is a white supremacist and racist, but the vast majority are, and that's the reality, and we need to stop fooling ourselves. These individuals, they don't want a more inclusive and better America. They want things to remain the same. So they will throw each other under the bus once in a while, okay, in order to give the perception that they are doing something. During Grandolo's civil assault trial, retired police officer and terrorism liaison Stephanie Amnes expressed personal views similar to the white supremacist group that the Gilbert Police Department assigned her to investigate as an undercover agent. So you're sending a white supremacist undercover agent to investigate a white supremacist group. Yeah. You see how that works? Okay, Amias testified that Islam is not a religion, and by extension, Muslims are not entitled to freedom of religion under the Constitution. Let me tell you something. I have Muslim people who they've been recently start using in my targeting. Okay? Which again, something I don't understand, but I understand that when you're a marginalized group of people, you want to be accepted, and you are willing to engage in criminal activities by with the authority of those that are in law enforcement. But they don't really care about you. They're just using you for their agenda. Okay? And the thing is that Muslims, Americans, and Black Americans are more Americans than white supremacists, because they believe in the Constitution. The white supremacist is trying to change the Constitution, but they always quote in the Constitution when it comes to their rights, but they would threaten everybody else's rights. Okay? So widely discredited as a conspiracy theorist, Guandolo has accused President Obama of treason and called former CIA Director John Berman a secret Muslim. While Guandolo trouts his service to the FBI, he resigned from the agency under scandal as a result of several sexual affairs. Again, we go back to law enforcement, and they're using their position of authority, law enforcement officers using their authority to have sex with women or men, to rape, to sexually assault women or men, okay, and get away with it. So, and again, I'm not making this up. I'm reading it. Okay, like I said, it's not my opinion. Despite me being targeted and being harassed and surveilled by the NYPD, you know, I don't talk bad about him because of my experience. I give you the facts. You know, and I document my experience. And it's not every NYPD officer, but the majority. And if you don't believe me, go and see what happens when good cops prevent bad cops from violating the rights of citizens or those living in the United States. Just go and do the research. Go and look. Okay? So it says, while Guandolo tried his service to the FBI, he resigned from the agency under scandal as a result of several sexual affairs with other agents, as well as Lori Modi, a material cooperating witness in the Department of Justice prosecution. He also solicited a $75,000 donation from an anti-terrorism organization from Moody while employed as an FBI agent. And see, and this is going to lead into my next topic. Okay? And this is perfect now. Okay? Well, not perfect, but, you know. Can't think of a word. Okay? So last year, Guandolo taught a group of police officers in San Angelo, Texas, that Muslim leaders are obligated to lie to them, and that Muslim houses of worship are where Muslims plan battles. He further claimed that Muslims are purchasing gas stations and working in the hotel industry to lay out foundation for waging a jihad in the United States. In Amir's home state of Arizona, Guandolo offered a 3-day seminar entitled Understanding and Investigating the Jihadi Network to law enforcement. A cash cow netting him $11,000, apparently peddling conspiracy theories as a lucrative business. These far-fetched conspiracy theories are at the center of a seemingly unrelated civil assault case in which Guandolo is the defendant. Guandolo claimed that the lawsuit is lawfare, a jihadi specialist, which he defines as the use of litigation to suppress the truth. Testimony at trial provides a different picture. Okay? In 2017, Guandolo dispersed material at the National Sheriff Association conference in Nevada and provided a 2-hour training sessions to attendees to identify the so-called Muslim threat. The material included a letter containing the Sheriff Association endorsement of UTT. Minneapolis Sheriff Richard Stanek discovered the letter and asked then Sheriff Association President Greg Champagne to retract the endorsement on the grounds that UTT was profiteering off of anti-Muslim propaganda and training law enforcement to do the same. In 2016, Guandolo published an article on his website claiming that Stein's office was working with jihadists. Okay? So I want you to understand the mindset of a lot of these police officers. Okay? And the people who are training them. And they will reflect the people who will train them. and they train it. It's a very important book you guys should read by Norm Stamper. It's called what is it? Breaking Bad. So Norm Stamper was a retired police detective or sergeant or something like that, and he wrote this book detailing how police officers are trained, their racist mentality that they exhibit, and even black police officers, Indian police officers, Muslim police officers, Hispanic police officers. When they come out of that training, they have the same view of who the enemies are, which are black and brown people, and they are the enemy and they're at war. So when they go on patrol, it's like they believe that they're in a war zone. Okay? So, Gonzalo assault is yet another example of a violent white supremacist ideology that furthers systemic inequalities by law enforcement towards disenfranchised and marginalized minorities. Law enforcement organizations nationwide are being indoctrinated by a radical and racist dogma. But they've been that way. You know? But when they write these articles, though there's truth in there, you know, a lot of it is to make it seem as if they're just becoming aware of these things. But they're not. Okay? It's no surprise that Gondola doesn't limit discrimination to Muslim. He has expressed doubt concerning the existence of systemic racism targeting African Americans and has labeled Black Lives Matter a Marxist organization. His seminar teaches law enforcement to recognize Black Lives Matter as a threat to national security, and he publicly stated that there will be dozens of jihadists doing multiple operations in conjunction with the Marxists and social group like Black Lives Matter, which will be, you know, burning and looting cities like they did in Ferguson and Baltimore. Okay? So I'm not going to go any more in this article. But yeah. So, you know, I know this may seem like a sidestep from the TI issue, but it is not, particularly since I'm a black person. So it's not a sidestep for me. You know what I'm saying? It's not a you know, something that doesn't happen. It happens. And it's the reality of a lot of black people and Muslim people. That's why I said this is why it was shocking to me, you know, when I become aware of this target and stuff that black people were involved, even your own family, which is ridiculous. But again, understanding that this was done in the past, how it was done, you know, you have a better understanding. Okay? Particularly when it's deception and lies, manipulation. Okay? So, let's talk about the personality. See, they like to profile us, create this false profile, this false narrative, and they will create situations in which they control, in which doesn't matter what you do, the outcome is going to be what it is because they've created it, they've created the situation, they've manipulated you, they use the technology which you have no idea about. So you are going to do exactly what they want you to do. Okay? Because they have the resources, the technology, the manpower, the manipulation of the environment, the situations around you. So the outcome is going to be exactly what they want it to be. So there's nothing you can do. That is until you learn about what's going on. Then you can create ways and not fall into certain traps. You know, you may still fall into some traps because sometimes, again, you are always going to be second guessing and questioning certain things, right? And so there are times where you will probably fall into some traps, but you have to keep one thing in mind. As long as you're not doing anything to injure yourself or that is of detriment to yourself or to others and people around you. Okay? Once you keep that in mind, and once you understand the programming you stand a better chance. Okay? So, extreme narcissism in policing organization. What to look for and how to correct it. Okay? It's written 2017, right? Dr. Michael L. Bashir and Dr. Mark Bond. While police officers commonly undergo a pre-employment psychological examination, these screenings do not currently measure tendencies for narcissism. In addition, there is very little research concerning narcissism in police officers. What should concern leaders is that extreme narcissism prevents people from positively interacting with leaders, peers, and the public. However, narcissists will generally seek professions that allow them to interact with people from a position of authority or superiority, where they have an advantage over people. Considering that policing affords people with narcissistic tendencies such a position, leaders in policing organization must be cognizant of and discourage these types of behavior in the best interest of their department and the communities they serve. But they have shown that they have never done that. Matter of fact, they encourage this type of personality and the behavior of narcissisms within police officers, I should say, or law enforcement officers. Okay? So, leaders, managers, and especially those working in public safety fields need to be empathetic and caring individuals. They need to show empathy towards the public they serve as well as to the subordinates they lead. These are important personality traits needed to build higher quality community leadership that narcissistic tendencies, if not addressed, will undermine and destroy. Narcissism, the term in and of itself, tends to suggest someone who is an ugly personality, someone who should be and is often avoided, someone who cares for only their self. This mental picture is accurate, as narcissism is repeatedly described as an extreme love of oneself to the point of lacking empathy for others, equate with egotism, and can develop into a medical defined personality disorder requiring treatment. Mayo Foundation for Medical Education and Research, 2017. However, within the confines of this document, the term narcissism is being employed as in a non-clinical sense to describe the action and apparent personalities of individuals who tend to hunger for attention and power or authority without regard to the welfare and being of others. Extreme narcissistic individuals do not hesitate to build shame or embarrass others to make themselves feel or hopefully appear to be better, more intelligent, and are more powerful. Extreme narcissistic behavior in conjunction with the tendencies of having little to no empathy towards others is viewed as detrimental as well as dangerous, particularly within the field of law enforcement. Extreme narcissistic behavior of this type, left unchecked, may eventually become the gateway to officer precipitated departmental conflict, OPDC. Okay? The term OPDC is used herein to describe extreme narcissistic interaction or action that incites conflict that contribute to an us versus them mentality. And again, when police officers in Norm Stamper book, he talks about this is the ideology that is ingrained into the mind of police cadets, that is a us versus them mentality. So the training creates the narcissistic personality. If they didn't already have it, it will reinforce it. Okay? Right. So internal OPDC is used to describe an officer's extreme narcissism negatively affecting department morale. This is because extreme narcissistic individuals have their own self-serving agenda and do not care about forming relationships between management, employees, and fellow officers, that is unless it benefits them. Now, how many officers have come out and said that the police commander told us to do this, the sergeant told us to do this? So it starts at the top. It starts at the top. Leadership, okay? And it's subordinate. The way how the subordinates act and behave is a direct reflection on leadership. So in law enforcement, if the regular B cop, the detectives, what have you, they are exhibiting racist personality traits or views, it's a reflection of the commanders, the captains, the sergeants. Okay? So, external OPDC is used to describe an officer's extreme narcissism negatively affecting department police community relations. This may be contribute to direct or indirect officers' precipitated conflict with those within the department and outside the department within the community. Unfortunately, law enforcement seem to be a type of magnet for narcissistic behavior because of the opportunities it provides for narcissistic behavior to develop and thrive. Okay, I talk about the dark triad, right? The Machiavellianism. Within almost any discussion of narcissism is the mention of the dark triad. The dark triad is compiled of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Okay? Each side of the triad is identified by different characteristics. A Machiavellian is noted as being socially charming and manipulative, while the psychopath display a hardened attitude towards society and tend to be impulsive and antagonistic in terms of interpersonal relationship. The narcissist feels inordinately entitled, and ego assumes a role of superiority commonly expressed through dominant behavior. Okay? So, signs of narcissism. Indication that an individual may be narcissistic or have narcissistic tendencies can and do align with as well as mirror other behavior and personality disorder. Furthermore, it should be noted that the appearance of one or more of these signs does not necessarily mean the individual has a disorder or is in need of medical attention, as many of these indications could easily be explained based on the timing, environments, and personal situation. For example, responding angrily when proven wrong or incorrect could be viewed as a normal reaction, particularly when you are 99% positive you were right, or the person who proved you wrong did so in a very public and embarrassing manner. However, if an individual consistently responds with true anger every time they are shown to be incorrect, it may be indicative of having a narcissistic tendencies. Other signs of indications of personal narcissism are as followed: grandiose presentation of self, difficulty dealing with dependent relationship positions, form mainly parasitic or explosive relationships, aloofness bordering on superiority, dismissive behavior attitudes towards other, egocentric, antisocial, and anger response when incorrect, wrong. In addition, an additional note is a narcissistic person typically and regularly daily will display more than one or two of these behavior. Also, there are other signs or indication of possible narcissism that were not and would best be addressed by professionals. Narcissism in law enforcement. As stated earlier, law enforcement tend to draw and attract narcissistic individuals or individuals with narcissistic tendencies due to the perspective that law enforcement officers are viewed as being authority figures. Even the lowest rank of law enforcement personnel are referred to as officers, which the term in and of itself indicates the concept of authority, and possibly power. Therefore, the narcissist can immediately saturate the desire to have control and authority over others. Unfortunately, the narcissistic appetite and need for control and authority are never fully sated and eventually can lead to action that lacks in terms of civility, caring, and morals. This lack of caring in terms of others is detrimental not only to fellow officers and to the local department, but affects the public opinion of the police force as a whole, thereby contributing to OPC. In addition to internal and external OPDC, this is extremely disconcerting given that research indicate the need for police force to build strong positive ties with the community, as these positive ties tend to lead to enhanced security in terms of being a deterrent to crime as well as assisting in the solving of crime. All right, so I'm going to end that right there. It's almost done anyway. But, you know, and the reason why I do these videos, you know, not just on the technology, the psychological methods and process that has been used against us as TIs, the covert action against us, illegal covert action, illegal drugging, poisoning, the destruction of our properties. But I want you to understand how people, particularly those in law enforcement and those who are religious believer, are easily manipulated into doing these things, right? And that when you have people in positions of power, they will most definitely abuse their authority, most of them. And those that don't, they usher out, okay? Or they set them up, create false narrative, do, you know, things to get them kicked out of those positions of authority. Because you see, those are the people who will keep the narcissistic, the dark triad personality officers in check and hold them responsible. But they don't want to be held responsible. You need to understand that. This is why, if you look at the history of non-consensual human experimentation within the United States, no one has been held accountable. None. Okay? And if anybody have any evidence to show that they have, please let me know and I'll correct that statement that I just made. Okay? So, again, just like Captain America says, right? In the movie with the soldier. Okay? Oh, before I almost forget about this. Can I forget about this? Okay? Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave that for another video. I think this video is long enough. Okay? And I'm going to leave this for another video. Hopefully I remember. And we're going to talk about this. Okay? So, with that being said, I will talk to you guys on the next Targeted Individual Program, Target Individual Experience video. Okay?